of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I think I will just turn it over to Nancy.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So tonight's agenda, we have the proposed. Or let me grab this over there. Okay, we have the proposed wind energy facilities overlay district map, a review of the proposed historic overlay district map, and recent changes to the proposed changes to the zoning map. And then we'll go into the most recent changes to the full text of the zoning ordinance, and that would be draft number 3. So starting out, this should be quick. So Principal Wind Energy Facilities Overlay District, we revised this map so that it now mirrors the Principal Solar Energy Facilities Overlay District. So I've zoomed in here on the map on the screen, and you will see that the overlay district is on the I Industrial District and a portion of the RD Recreational District. And so those are the same areas that the Principal Solar Energy Facilities are proposed to be permitted. So this was a result of discussion at the last meeting that we had last month. Yes.
Sorry. If I'm looking at this right, so the wind overlay is on part of the historic overlay?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I don't know about that.
And that's where the solar is as well. So the solar development is on this property.
Okay.
Well, the solar has it's not all of Pocono Manor. I don't think the solar was in the historical district. That was a separate parcel. Is that right?
I believe the solar is on this parcel that's got the blue hatch on it.
Yes, it is. But does that include the entire Pocono Manor Historical District, the old hotel and everything, or golf course?
No, so here
That's what
so if we look at the historic overlay district, that is the entirety of this Pocono Manor area. So on this map showing the historic overlay, which I just copied from the ordinance that was recently adopted, the black hatch pattern shows the historic district overlay. So it does include that property that has the solar farm on it and is also the wind, part of the wind energy overlay.
can that be carved out?
Carved out of the historic overlay?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, that's for a board decision and planning commission input. I mean,
Would the property that's there be grandfathered, and then if any improvements were done, then it would become part of that overlay? Because I know there was some issue when we were doing the historic overlay that we didn't want to pick out certain properties to exclude from that historical overlay. I believe there was some discussion to that. But if that property has something that is not allowed in the historic overlay, is that then grandfathered in or not?
Is that a legal question for Lisa?
anything that is existing at the time the new ordinance would be enacted would be considered a non-conforming use. So
Okay.
it could exist there in that capacity
So-
as long as it doesn't change.
In this scenario, if the historic overlay district with its requirements now include a property that has a solar farm, that would be non-conforming. If hypothetically in the future it changed use, then it would have to conform
It would have to
with.
conform to the underlying zoning district. And if they
Okay.
wanted to avail themselves of the overlay, then at that point they could, correct?
Okay.
Were you concerned with that, Christine, being in the historical?
That bottom right corner, form, golf, but game.
Didn't we do it? Isn't that the solar farm? There.
That would be where, the power line crosses back down through the pretty steep grade. That's part of that. Also comes across that down there.
Please turn on your microphones. We can't hear you.
In between Sullivan Trail and Back Mountain Road, that the bottom right part of the RD, yeah,
Right here?
to the right a little bit. The purple part to the right.
Oh,
yeah,
here.
that piece there.
That is the solar farm or?
No, but that's also part of the Pocono Manor.
This, I believe, is part of the solar.
It's the
Farm
boundary of it.
as
That
well.
that line is where the power line goes across Back Mountain Road, if I'm not mistaken, and then makes a steep descent down Back Mountain Road on the left-hand side as you go down the hill. Which is part of the Pocono Manor property.
And not part of the historical district? Or how-
No, it's not part of the historical district as it's drawn, but it is part of the same property.
I don't think the historic district should include any of that parcel with the solar field. There's nothing historic there.
It used to have its own zip code at once upon a time. The whole Pocono Manor did.
I mean, but there's nothing historic there now. It would just provide additional protections.
If you walk through the woods, there's lots of old remnants of what was there 100 years ago. Or
Well, there's no woods there now. That's that bottom lot. I'm fine with the lot above. I'm fine with the space around Pocono Manor, but the big lot that's now the solar field, I don't think that. Yeah, have it draw right along the top of that line there. Yeah, follow that line. Why does it come all the way down into that other lot and it doesn't even pick up the whole thing?
all the same parcel.
Is that a problem, Lisa, when you're dividing, or John, when you divide a parcel, one parcel into two zones?
Typically, you don't. Typically, zoning districts follow property lines, but I think this is a unique situation because the piece of property is so large. And the solar field has been established. And in effect, I forget whether it's it's a lease agreement, but its outbounds has been in fact established by that lease agreement. So to follow the solar field lease agreement would be appropriate for a zoning map. You wouldn't have to include all the holdings for Pocono Manor. If that answers the question, but I don't know if it does or it doesn't. But
Understandable, I guess, but I'm just worried they're gonna cram something in on that little piece there, and it's not really topographically good for that sort of development. It's nothing but a hill from there down. It's a giant hill. Then there's streams, spring-fed streams that come right out of the ground in those two areas.
Is there anything historic down there, like any wells or anything where the streams come out?
Not so much on that lower end, but like I said, it was all part of that whole property at one time.
What do you think about having it reach down? Because that whole lot is contiguous with that section that comes down on the right that's not a part of the solar field. The solar field is like its own little piece there off to the left. What about trimming that out and having the part that is still wooded and mountainside there included as well.
That's what I would hope.
Yeah.
That somehow
Mhm.
protected from
Yeah,
Not.
worse
not out here.
tree
Yeah.
cutting.
I'm not, I believe the solar field is on this, the solar farm or whatever you want to call it is on this piece here as well.
Right. That whole parcel, that line that cuts through there is not like the division of that parcel. That parcel includes everything up to the edge of Pocono Township there.
Right.
Right, but you could do, as I trace this out, you've still got a good chunk, which is the solar farm in that purple area that's not hash marked or whatever. And that's a pretty good size that you could, because it already has a solar farm on it, you could designate that specific smaller area as wind. This way, if say 10 years from now, the solar people say our solar panels aren't cutting it, we want to put wind in. Well, you're going to have to get rid of your solar panels, but you can only use that little section in the purple area
This is the solar field.
down below. Because you would be non-conforming, etc. Here, let me.
That may not work either though, because there are setbacks that are required for the wind facilities. And so if the parcel is too small, then they won't be able to meet the setbacks. And then it's exclusionary.
Nancy, can you confirm exactly where the solar field is? Because what you have up on the screen is a historical overlay. That's the wind solar energy is much smaller. And I thought we put the wind solar energy, whatever this is, on the parcel that already had the solar farm.
Right. So that's this.
So we condensed it to where the solar farm already is. Didn't
Right.
we?
Right.
So outside of those boundaries is not part of the wind because that's not developed. That's the steep slope I think that Kyle's talking about.
Right.
Kyle, can you confirm? So that's the wind overlay. The other one was a historical district. So the wind overlay should be on the solar farm parcel.
Yeah,
To the
that's-
right of that, outside of it is the steep slopes that you're talking about,
Yes,
right?
Correct.
So when we talked about this last meeting, we condensed the wind to the existing solar field parcel of where it's developed now to make sure that it didn't expand throughout the
Yep.
whole parcel.
Yeah, that's
So I think that it was backwards on the
Damage is
screen.
already-
The big one was a historical overlay.
Right. The big one is the historical overlay. The issue is that the historical overlay cuts across this parcel. So if I flip back here, the historic overlay is cutting out. It goes generally across here. And that's the question as to why
I think
it
we
doesn't
had,
include that whole parcel, which is.
yeah, I don't know, but I do think I remember the discussion when we did the overlay that we did know that this part of the solar field was in it, but we said it would be an existing non-conforming use.
Yeah.
Couldn't be I don't know whether it could be expanded or not, but I know we discussed it at the time that we did the overlay. And everyone at that time was comfortable with how the overlay compared to the existing solar fields. And then, as Natasha just said, our last discussion was we would confine the wind energy to the exact same area that the solar was.
Right. Plus the industrial district.
Right.
Yes. We were trying to make sure it didn't expand
Right.
beyond what was already demolished.
Right. Right.
Does that take care of your concerns, Stan? Anybody else have any concerns the way it is?
I
Confused.
don't think it should include the solar overlay at all. I don't think it should come into that entire parcel. I think we should take that entire parcel out and we should have it pick up the parcel or the remainder of that other parcel that is cut off. Can you go back to the other one, Nancy? Yeah, you see how it leaves off that right-hand section that Kyle was saying is the mountainside there. That section to the not that portion
Oh,
to the right there.
the other side. of
Yeah, see that?
yeah.
I think that should be included because that's contiguous with the parcel above it, and I think we should cut out the entirety of the solar overlay because there's nothing historic there. They took all the trees. There's nothing left. But that section there is still wooded. Kyle was saying there are like stream sources and stuff. That section is still historic.
I don't understand what you're saying because.
to change the historic overlay.
Oh, I don't wanna do that.
I would make it bigger, if anything.
Yeah, that would take a whole new resolution and,
Yeah,
And
and
hearing an
and it's based on the federal, we just followed the federal.
Yeah,
yeah.
I thought that the historical overlay went through, it matched the state and federal
It did.
layout of,
It did.
which I guess unfortunately may not reflect the current reality of what's on those properties, but I think that was some of the concerns from the residents that lived in that area, that they didn't want it carved out certain pieces, and then it just matched what the state and federal map showed.
Correct.
Right. That is correct.
So the state map cuts through parcels to designate the historic zone. It doesn't just list parcels that are historic.
When it was presented to us, that's what we were told, that the map that you see here matches the state and federal map.
Okay.
I didn't
odd.
see.
There was a lot of research that was done by an individual that documented lots and lots of historical things. That is what was submitted to the National Register, and that's how the map was developed. And then we simply accepted those.
Right.
Well, we didn't merely accept them. We discussed that we wanted our historical district to coincide with that interpretation and that layout.
And that's what the people wanted that lived there.
They wanted the solar field included in the historic overlay.
Field was already there, so there was nothing we could do about it. The solar field's there.
Yeah, no, I mean, my concern is just that, like, you know, in the future, I'd like our historic overlay to, you know, do a little more, provide a little more protections for, you know, people who own those properties to make sure that they can, you know, stay historic. If we're saying a solar field is historic, I fear that may, again, provide opportunity for the, you know, the owner of the solar field to, you know, skirt certain regulations, things like that, you know, other homeowners, you know, that are trying to protect historic properties are meant to be using.
So
I mean,
I think the consensus is it's
It's-
okay
it's-
unless anybody.
stay as
other
is.
than Charles wants to debate that. Obviously, he's not happy with that.
yeah, well, that's not what I'm saying.
All right.
I'm fine with following the
So I'm hearing that the principal wind energy facility overlay district showing on that parcel plus the industrial district is okay as is. And the historic overlay district as shown will remain as is. Okay. All right. Next up is the zoning map. So the changes that were made here are, we had talked about expanding the C2 district to include some of these larger parcels that are at the I-80 interchange. So we have Great Wolf, and I just took a crack at this, looking at these parcels and their location in relationship to the I-80 interchange. We have Great Wolf in here, this large parcel, up to Scott Run. And I grabbed larger parcels that are fronting on 611 and then came down to along 715. These smaller parcels along 715 would remain C1. And then these two parcels here that are near the C3 district are changing from C1 to C2. And I believe that is it in terms of what changed from the last map.
I don't know if it's in this part, but we had talked about Ruby Lane and Kevin's Way being rezoned out of C3 or whatever it was.
I think it is. I think it's this little jut up right here, isn't it?
I don't know.
Right
It was
here.
C1 to R2. I think that little section down there was what I was asking about.
C1, we had talked about C1 to R2, I believe, and there was discussion about reaching out to those property owners. Is that happening, or do you want to go forward with?
Well, I think initially it was C3. And
This was initially,
C3,
yeah, C3.
because of to avoid spot zoning.
Yeah, then we
I think
changed it to
C1 was-
C1.
Best we could do, right?
Yep, but it is residential, so is it spot zoning when that's what it is? So that's a Lisa question.
No, it is not.
Okay.
So
You can have residential uses in existing residential uses.
Because we changed, another neighborhood that was commercial to residential. Right, so,
I mean, you could change it, but
yeah,
I mean, they're legally there, and they can-
But are you, but so,
I thought
I'm
we were
all
doing
for
the letter.
changing it to residential, but so it's just gonna be a tiny little sliver there in that C1 zoning district. Is that gonna be okay to change to an R2?
I thought it also included Ruby Lane.
I wanted,
Yeah, we had talked about including Ruby Lane too as residential.
I wanted to
In
change
fact, that whole
C1 section should go to R2 to avoid it becoming spot zoning, because if we trim off everything around Ruby Lane and up to Kevin's Lane, we're only going to have one parcel left that's C1. We should just make that whole section R2.
What's in that parcel now, though?
All residential homes, as far as I know. I don't think there's anything commercial over there.
right now, the existing zoning is commercial on that, just C commercial.
With the exception of the kennel, I think that's the only commercial thing over there. That's on the other side of Route 80. That's after you pass under Route 80, so it's not even up by, the other stuff that's along Staten Road there. The businesses that are up there, it's far from them.
Where's Staten? Lisa, do you have a big, where's Staten Road on that? Good coming.
Staten Road is.
That one? Okay, so that one coming off of Staten.
Well, you've got, what's his name, on the left side of the road of Staten, don't you? There's some commercial stuff coming off of Staten.
That's the only reason I was asking, because 611 there, you come off Staten, you have Peddler's Village and all those.
That big packet. Can you find it to bring it up?
Because you have those huge parcels.
Yes,
And do you know what was headed? It was from you though, right?
yeah, but it was, what's this meeting number?
29?
Yeah.
I thought we had talked about sending a letter out.
My main concern about that section is that zoning C1 or C has been in place since 1983. And you've got people have purchased property, so I think we need to check with all those property owners before we.
Yeah, and I think they had talked about sending a letter out. Do you remember that, Nancy?
Yes.
So if we could do that to all those property owners, I don't know if that's a Paul thing or.
That would be a
office.
Pat and Jim thing,
Okay,
and then they bring it down.
That's my recollection from the last meeting was there was discussion about changing the entire area there from C to R2, or at least portions of it, but that the township would have some kind of communication with the landowners prior to doing that, and also check to see if there are any pending land development plans on any of these properties.
If I remember correctly, too,
Yeah.
that huge parcel, literally where the C1 sits,
Right.
isn't there a commercial piece in Jackson Township too? That we were discussing last meeting?
There's a small quarter.
There's something, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it's a commercial district in Jackson Township.
Okay.
It's just in our district.
Okay.
They would gain access off of, road over there. I believe it's.
I think it's Gardner Road.
Yeah.
Is everyone okay with writing a letter? Getting the people's input?
I think there's more residential than commercial
I
in
do
that
too.
parcel
Yeah.
particularly.
You know, or maybe,
Yeah.
maybe they
Because-
want it commercial now because they're gonna sell.
But the majority of it is Ruby Lane, Oval Court, which is the trailer park there. And then there's a few parcels in the behind Oval, which are residential single family. Then you have the obviously the pop-up, you have Plain is also residential. I believe there's one STR at the top of F Lane. Then you have the smaller portion that's owned by Core Five, just to the south of their main property. That they have the pump station and the easement for the utilities. And then the vacant lot that we're spot.
Down here.
One of on the south side of Staten is mostly single family dwellings. I believe there's a wooded lot that's also owned by 4-5, with part of the same parcel across the street. And then the big one is another property that I'm not sure, there's no land development or anything pending for it.
Okay, then I will ask the managers to send a letter out. Or Chris Ann can, or somebody can, yeah.
Just for clarity, did we want that letter to go out for the final draft approval, or did we want like a separate meeting, or what was?
I just think a letter to go out and then we'll tally them up when they come in. Right. You mean, well, this,
Yeah,
this
if we're gonna
probably
have
won't be
another meeting to discuss like a map change, or do we want to wait for the final, and how do we want to do it would be the.
I would say just change it.
yeah,
If you look at it anyway, the access roads to even to get to that big parcel where the C1 sits, the access roads are ridiculously tiny. If you've been, I mean, you live on Staten, but
Mhm.
further back, it's like
Mhm.
there's one lane bridges and stuff
Yeah.
back there. Like you couldn't even develop it unless they could come through Jackson Township. But I mean, the access on that's ridiculous.
I think
Out there.
I think Wellington Road Bridge is it's a 1-lane bridge that's
Mhm.
limited on weight.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Staten Bridge that we were discussing with it for going for the grant is the other only access off of 611.
Would the trailer park then become a non-conforming use? If it was rezoned to R2?
Would be allowed.
Schedule. Trailer parks are permitted in R2.
To that size
I-
though?
Hmm?
To that size?
I mean, to any size, they're permitted in R2. I don't believe currently. I believe they're only in commercial. I don't know about the new use schedule. I'd have to take a look at that. Be a mobile home park.
Yeah, mobile home park, because there's what, 35 lots in there, 35 plus.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why I'm asking. He's saying it's allowed in R2, but it is in this, maybe in a small scale, but when you're talking 35 plus lots.
I drove around, but I didn't count it.
The new proposed use schedule shows mobile / manufactured home parks permitted in the R2, C1, C2, and C3.
And correction, they are permitted in R2 and C.
Okay.
Okay, so that will remain as C1 for now until we get some feedback from those property owners.
Yes.
Okay, Now, one question, this parcel here stands out. So when I went ahead and remapped some of these parcels and changed them from C1 to C2, it left this parcel along 611 standing out as a C1 from, a location standpoint. It seems like it would make sense to make that C2 just to connect all along 611 there. This is a parcel though that in previous meetings we had discussed whether or not, I think these had been rezoned to commercial recently, along with these other properties here on 715. And we did have some discussion about these properties here in maybe 2 meetings ago. And it was, the board decided to keep them as C1. But now in this recent change, again, it seems that it would make sense to change this one to C2, but I don't know if there's any reason to not do that.
Is that part of Copus's?
I think that's south.
This says it's Fritz Katura.
Right, Fritz, yeah.
Let's see again, this should be C2.
Does this border,
Says this little line here. So it essentially followed the line of the C2.
I think that's across the street from
But-
Crossings, if I'm not mistaken.
what's that road that cuts between Shine Hill and 715?
Munch.
Munch. Is this
Yeah.
on Munch?
You can't do that.
No,
R2
the
was
R2
on-
parcel is, Munch goes right there.
Okay.
So this one is connected to 611.
That borders
This one is
611 though, right?
611.
It abuts 611.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Way up
Because I
on
know
top.
people on Munch have told me they don't want that.
Yeah, it's just that one piece which sits down there because Munch is up here.
is?
I believe,
What's on it?
believe so.
I don't see an issue with
Why is
C2.
it, why is it,
R2 there, I don't know.
yeah, why is that R2 and not just residential? On Munch?
Yeah, Munch has multifamily units up there. And I think that's why that was left at R2.
I almost bought that property. It's got,
So
yeah,
did I.
it's got that whole parcel, has a couple different
Long time.
apartment complexes.
That's septic system.
I don't know if that includes my 10 unit. That should not be R2.
Nancy, is that piece all owned is that one parcel owned by one person?
Making that
It
C2. to follow
looks
C2
like it's
line.
one
because it's
parcel.
Trying to
Yeah.
think of-
What if we made that parcel R2? Because right now that R2 district only includes, I think, 3 parcels. Which, is that 3 or 4? Maybe 4.
It sits on 611 though.
It sits on 611.
Yeah, it sits on 611.
Well, R2 could be, apartments. R2 could be, but it would be less intensive than C2, but it would still provide housing for people maybe working in the C2 district.
I think there's a house on that property now, isn't there?
Yeah, it looks like there is one.
So maybe because right above it is R1, right? So we do have R1 that
Yeah, the Buckland neighborhood.
Currently up on that property, there's a single family dwelling with a detached garage.
okay. So if there's nothing commercial there, why not make it some kind of residential?
We bought that for commercial.
Well, if
What about
somebody
it?
lives there, I think we should, if that's only one parcel, then we should ask the owner, do they want to change? They don't want to change, leave it alone.
Well, it's already zoned commercial. She was just asking to change it from C1 to C2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Munch, my 10 units included in that R2 parcel. No. Not in mine.
Not
I did.
yours, but I mean on that.
Yeah, I thought he-
Okay, so send a letter to that owner as well.
That would be my suggestion, but pleasure of the boards.
And the question is to rezone to C2. I believe so. I think it was recently rezoned to C.
And
I don't know what it was.
I put those down into. So that parcel split 611. So
On both sides.
Nancy, that parcel in particular split 611, and there's acreage on the other side, and then further down on low between 611 and Lower Scott Run Avenue. That's currently now C2, and the big part of the parcel is C1 at 51 acres. I'm looking on the tax map,
I'm sorry, where are you now?
the same one that we were just talking about.
This,
There's a-
okay.
A tiny sliver of the west side of
So
six
same
eleven.
parcel again,
Yeah.
its own
The east.
district.
And it's
Where
got,
the
so it's
west-
got, you have all these jets, so 611 cuts it. So you have this side, and then you have the lower, you have the, between Lower Scott Run Avenue,
Yes.
which is now, so we've now put 2 acres of their property at C2 and the rest of it's at C1. Their big parcel, C1.
So I personally think that should be a letter to one, but pleasure of the boards.
Okay, when we send the letter, what do you want us to question on, whether they'd like it R2, C, or C1, C2, I mean R2 or C1, C2?
Whatever they are now to stay, or whatever it is that we're asking for. Yeah,
What are we asking for, C2 or C1?
I think that was the plan, right, to have C2 all the way up, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So even if they are, regardless of whatever they do, they're in Act 319, so it'd be a hefty tax bill.
Yeah.
To get it out, to develop it. Hefty.
They're playing green.
I'm just looking at, I'm looking at the topographical map and that piece is like
Yeah. they're Act
one of the
319
steepest
for sure.
slopes in the
It
township.
does have a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 1,300 square foot house on it. They're currently R2.
I think that they were rezoned recently to C.
I think that was one of the things.
I think it's one of the ones that was rezoned to C.
Yeah.
Sometime in
That's
the
a
last
big-
year or two.
I didn't, we did it up to 715 corridor, though, are we sure that was part of it? Because according to the tax record, it's R2.
That's what I was looking at. No, I'm looking at quite a bit with Cherry Lane, some of the ones on Shine Hill, things like that.
Okay.
I'm looking at the county map, and that lot specifically is actually listed as R2.
So that, yeah, I'm literally on the tax records, it's R2.
But yeah, it was
Part of you.
It was- rezoned recently.
I'll grab the ordinance where we changed those real quick and double check if that number, tax map number was on it.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
6
Okay, I think that is it on the zoning map. But I would ask that while, in the meantime, while we're waiting for letters to go out to these landowners and responses from them, if you look over it, and if there are any other properties that you think should be included in C2 or not included in the C2. Like I said, I took a crack at doing this. But if there's anything I missed or anything you'd like to see added, just make note of it.
And did we make you aware that we removed the data center overlay?
Yeah, so I have that included now. It's included in this latest draft.
There is no data center overlay. That's what I'm saying. We changed it. We took it out.
You took it out
Yeah.
entirely.
We're just
Right.
allowing data centers in
Yeah.
the industrial district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just adopted.
Oh, darn.
Just
Just
like
added
a
that
couple
in.
days ago. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that has to be changed if it's not already.
Okay. So is there an ordinance that goes along with that? So,
It was just enacted last Monday, so we'll send that.
okay. Yeah. If you could send that over to me.
Did we talk about the northernmost commercial parcel on 611, the one where the woman came
Yeah.
in and was worried about the restrictions there since she bought it as a commercial property and is obviously trying to develop it. I was interested in that one being C2, and I know it's disconnected from the rest of the C2, but that's near our industrial zone and it's near Mount Airy. So I still don't think the northernmost C1 parcel there on the right side should be C1.
That's
Up in
lady that
this
you talked
area.
to, right?
Yeah, she came to our meeting.
So we did talk about that at the last meeting. My understanding, and I could be wrong, is that in lieu of changing this area, there was kind of a compromise with the impervious coverages that we were discussing. But if the board wants to, I believe we talked about changing this entire area of the C1 north of 611 into C2.
I had said from the Swift water down, I think that's just around the bend there in 611 and pick up the parcels, just the ones that are across from Sanofi there, to make it into, a nicer little, potentially like a nicer little, park for the people who work at Sanofi. Allow for a little bit denser development in that area around the industrial zone.
Make it what? What are you proposing?
C2.
Make that all C2. That whole section from like the Swift water down that's already, pretty densely developed there, and just make that whole section there.
Up.
No, it's a little bit south of the Sanofi. Well, I guess along the map there, just a little south of the Sanofi set. I think it's that big lot just around the bend there.
Let me zoom in.
Let them all be C2 though. A quarter.
It's a little further down.
Tell me when I
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. That one right there.
this here.
Yep. So I was thinking from there up, because that's already, an event center, trap, why not? That's all, big hotel, and there's already bigger stuff, in there and going in the future, the hotel and retail and stuff. Have that all be made C2. That makes sense for C2.
And on this side of 611 as well. So it would kind of take all this in. Or just on this side.
I think the other side there is like a Dunkin' Donuts and like a little strip mall and stuff. So
Okay.
yeah.
I think regardless.
So take it up this side of 611 and then get all of this as well.
Well, I think what we were trying to do originally was keep the higher density stuff as far south as we could towards Bartonsville and the 33 interchange there to prevent truck traffic from getting stuck at traffic lights on hills on 611 in the wintertime, and keeping all the higher traffic, more commercial type vehicles down towards Bartonsville. If I'm not mistaken.
And around the interchange, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the C2 district, when you look at the purpose statement for the district, it mentions the interchanges with Route 80. So if we put C2 up here on the northern end, it doesn't really jive with that purpose statement for the C2. So the C2 district, the purpose is to allow for regional scale development, higher intensity development coincident with or in proximity to these interchanges. And then for the C1 district, it is to have smaller scale development in these outer reaches of 611 and 715. So that was the rationale, and that's what's stated in the purpose section.
So do we know what's on the other side of this C1 piece up north on the Mount Pocono side? What that's zoned right next door to that? I'm wondering what this person would lose going from commercial to commercial
C1.
one. And if the other side of that property is, I mean, it's right next to industrial.
The C1 district, I think, still provides for most, if not almost all of the uses. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, we'd have to look at we'd have to look at the use schedule to see.
There's only a handful of things like hospitals. I mean, I can run down the list. It's a couple of pages, but it's pretty easy to do. There was hospitals, there was like a lumber yard, she's not losing much on that property. There's only a handful of things. So unless she's going to be manufacturing, homes or something, I think there was car sales that you could do in C2. There was different things like that. So actually, if you go down the use schedule, I have the list right here. Anyone wants to see it? There's really not a lot she's going to lose going from C2 to C1 or commercial to C1.
So since we're sending letters to individual property owners, why don't we send her a letter too? Maybe if she understands what it is, maybe that's good enough, and maybe it's not. We're sending letters.
I don't think it's just about the use. Everything changes in C1 to C2. Your building heights, your setbacks, your everything.
Sorry, which property?
So
Which property are you talking about now?
I believe we're talking about the C1 right on top of the map, on top of the industrial, on the right-hand side.
I think, is it this large one here?
Is that what you're talking about, Matt? What property?
I mean, I'm talking about all of the C1 to the east of 611 there above our industrial zone. I don't understand why we would make that C1. I would support that being C2, all of it. I mean, it's right next to our industrial zone. Why would we go from industrial zone to the most restrictive commercial zone? It doesn't make any sense from a planning perspective.
A school right on the other side of that line, don't you?
But we have Sanofi's right there. I
Yeah,
mean,
we got a school, a church, a community along Lower Swiftwater. It's all, a gas station. You had a high density residential place that they tore down. I don't know what they plan to do with that next to the Acorn, but it's all a big hill going back to the school. You can literally see the school almost from 611.
no, I know the school there, but so is our industrial zone.
But the problem is we put everything down south.
Sorry.
You see what happens when we get snow. When the trucks come off 80, they stop at these traffic lights and then they sit there in the road spinning their wheels and everything gets gridlocked. That's why we kept it all off the hill. You got a school district there running buses. What are they gonna do when these trucks get stuck and kids can't get home? It's bad enough as it is. Just with having the traffic that goes off 80 up to Tobyhanna Township to all the warehouses up there.
There is quite a few residential properties along 611 in that C1 zoning district. From memory, there's only a handful of commercial properties on the east side. There's the daycare off Lower Swiftwater. The gas station on the corner, then Pocono Falls is Paradise Town, so.
How does that mirror the Paradise Township side of that line?
Commercial. Cause Fallon's owns that building. Where
Well, yeah, I mean, you got
Polly's and
Mount Airy
RPR and
right
everything else.
here.
And then you got the motel across the street, you got the car wash.
And Paradise is gonna make that industrial across from Mount Airy.
Mm-hmm. So it's all commercial businesses as it is now.
Relatively commercial up there. Obviously, Mount Airy's up above this north towards 611. You gain access off that stoplight. There is, I believe, there's a landscape business off of Lower Swiftwater as well before you get into Paradise Township. That was an STR. Other than that, it's mostly residential until you get towards Paradise. That's where the majority of their business district is. There was, what was it, Amber Steakhouse that burnt down?
Oh, it's still there. Is it called something else?
The
Amber.
Yeah, Kimchi and Sabi, but further down by the stoplight.
Oh, that was Big Daddy's.
Yeah.
That in Paradise or?
That's in Paradise Township.
But they're making all that industrial, there's their discussion with us.
Is that Paradise? Because Pocono is up 314. How does that work?
It's an odd
314 splits
one.
off. Like
Because the
314
angle,
goes over to the west where 611 keeps going north.
the last property on 611 that is in our jurisdiction is the Casino Motel.
Okay.
And then pretty much across the street, Pocono Polly's is Paradise.
So. Does he want to make a comment?
Sure.
The only thing that bothers me about making P2 and having more traffic is, I mean, you guys know, the school that's out, those buses back up almost all the way up to being out of the high school now, trying to get out of that stoplight. And if you just make more traffic there, C2 type zone, that light's gonna be impossible to get through. I mean, I don't know how long I sat there with buses and everything else trying to get across there.
The kind of traffic that would be generated versus a C2 versus a C1 district is the difference would be minimal. So commercial in general, but yeah, the same parking and requirements and traffic for those types of uses are very similar. So
I think Kyle's point is well taken for me because you get a truck on a hill and you're not going anywhere. And you better back up in a hurry because he's coming back. Well, we could send a letter and see where that person falls. Maybe C1 is all they wanted to do. I mean, I think that was the only person that reached out from that area, right? One person.
She was here.
She was here.
Yeah, regardless, that's my position. I think even the starting at the end of the industrial zone on the west side, I would have the same position. But obviously, I'm only one vote. So
the large parcel that is shown in the C1 with the kind of weird creek, that's actually a Paradise Township property. I'm not sure why it kind of shows in ours. It's their tax parcel ID. It's the school district owns it. The small lot kind of next to where the blue stream is on the right side, that's Paradise Township. That's a currently, well, no longer STR because they don't have a license and they're looking to sell it as a single family dwelling.
Wait, you're saying that C1 is Paradise? That's on the map up there?
Where the cursor is kind of shaking, that's part of the same property that is the school is on.
So that's Paradise. So our map is wrong?
no, it's like
It-
Kalahari comes into
Yeah.
Pocono, but it's not
similar
our.
with the dual brand hotel, how it's in our map, where our line is within it. So if they built something in our
Oh, I got
district,
you.
it may be,
The
but
taxes go there.
ultimately
Well,
it's one of those arguments.
I don't know, we can get the tax.
Matt, what was that lady? Do you know, what was her last name? Do you know? Or can you text it to me if you can find it?
I don't. No, it wasn't Gina Loyak. No, no,
No,
I don't
maybe it
remember her
wasn't Gina.
name.
Okay.
But
'Cause
yeah,
I wanted to see her parcel, which one she was actually talking about, to pull it up on tax records to see how big it was.
This is the 15-acre piece that was up for sale.
I don't know. That's what I'm
I just remember she came in. She was
very upset.
north of the industrial zone. Yes, had bought a commercial property. Now we were placing restrictions on it, and I still I understand the points about trucks and traffic and everything, but I still, from a planning perspective, I still think making that C1 everything on the east and I think those at least those 6 parcels, you know, the candle shops right there and oh, what the car is there a car wash there?
The,
I would support that being C2.
the casino motel, the car wash, the candle shop, Becker Roofing, Kimchi and Wasabi. Those are all in the C1 district.
That's all permitted in C1 anyway, isn't it?
That's my.
So why change it?
Use currently there. Apply in C1.
Yes, they should. Building height and kind of impervious coverage may be changed slightly, but
But you got to think about the future too. We're not just trying to conform the zoning to current uses. We're trying to think about long-term planning and where do we want C2 versus C1. So that's where I'm coming from.
buffering the industrial district with more intensive uses as you get closer to the R1 is in general a good idea, but where to draw the line is kind of the discussion.
I feel like
Personally, with
people want
Matt,
to see things kind of stay the same for a while, and not, you know, keep building as much as you can. I mean, there's other places you can go. Why change it?
I mean, on the other hand, too, if this is changed to C2, then you have C2 butting up against these residential properties here.
So can you zoom in there?
Right.
Cut.
the C2,
No, can you zoom in? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Up there.
it butts up
yeah,
on
that's such residential everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Almost it. Well, in a lot of places, yeah. So sorry, Matt, zoom in again here.
Yeah. So looking on the west side of 611, zoom in one more time, maybe. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels on the west of, yes, you know, there's those are the ones I'm talking about. I think below. So I mean, yeah, what there might be 2 residential properties there, but there's a creek between, and I don't know what the nearest house is there. Those are pretty big parcels. Well, that one is empty, right?
Three of those properties over there, I believe, are residential. There are, because the line that goes kind of west is 314. Yes, that one up there. So as you get off the kind of triangle piece between 314 and 611 is the Kimchi Wasabi. The left side of it is, or the west side is mostly residential properties. I believe there is one commercial property that has like a auto repair business home occupation. It's like existing nonconformity, I believe. Yeah. Becker Roofing is before the kind of intersection. There's the 314, so it's south of that.
Topographically, you could make it anything, and I don't think you could build anything there. It's.
There's a lot of wetland
There's a lot
and
of stuff going
floodplain
on.
throughout there.
Yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but nobody's gonna build there.
Yep.
Well, I decided to write down all of the stuff that C1 versus C2. There's things that can't go in C1 would be a boarding house, building material storage and equipment yard, shelters for homeless and abused people, a treatment center, a hospital, light manufacturing, modular home sales, nightclub, offices of plumbers and contractors, and vehicle sales. So that's the only that's the only difference between C1 and C2. It's about what 10 things, give or take. So you're not losing a whole lot by going from C2 to C1. I mean, unless she's going to put a nightclub up there or something. Which if it was C2, she could. But again, all of this stuff would also have to meet all the requirements, setbacks and everything. So if it's a smaller lot, a lot of this stuff couldn't even be done anyway. You know what I mean? So I'm just putting that out there.
I think that would support my point to change it to C2 then, because even if there's, you know, I'm looking at it purely from a long-term planning perspective. Right along 611 and 314 by an industrial zone and a casino. I don't know why we'd be put in, it's not just the uses, it's the other restrictions about
Impervious coverage.
yes, the buildings, the height, everything. So, and if there's setbacks, then, so be it, C1 or C2.
I'm personally with Matt on it. With the C2 up there.
Can we get a consensus one way or the other then? So Nancy knows what to do. That's C2.
If you look at it more from the ability to develop the property versus the uses, because there's kind of two things that define C1, 2, 3, what you can do on the property and the use. So looking at it from that perspective, maybe going from C1 to C2 is less about expanding the uses and more about expanding what you can do on the property, other than looking at the ability to develop C1 and whether or not we want to evaluate what you can do in a C1 versus C2, or change that from C1 to C2 from the lens of how you can develop the property, not so much the use.
Yeah, I mean, I love this idea of C1, especially along 715, away from 611. And I even understand it from, the northernmost C2 parcel on the map right now on 611, all the way up to the industrial zone. I get that. But yeah, once you get past the industrial zone, I don't know why you would go back to C1 there.
So what's the call? C2?
Anybody else want to weigh in?
C1, C2?
C2.
Court.
The only major difference between this. The only major difference between the C1 and C2, besides the uses, would be the building height. So C2 district, you're allowed a maximum of 50 feet height, and C2 is 50. C1 would be 35.
And your impervious surface and stuff changes too, right? Yeah.
Yes, and then maximum building coverage for 40 for non-residential uses, impervious coverage 35 for residential uses, 60 for other is in the C1. And then maximum impervious coverage 35 for residential uses, 70 for other in the C2.
60 versus
35 versus 50 in building height.
And then you get a building coverage as well in the C1 versus the C2.
So there's a huge difference in the use of the property.
So you're C2.
C2.
Dan, where are you at?
I don't know. I do think it makes sense to make it C2. But at the same time, I think Kyle's point is really salient. Like, there's already going to be a lot of truck traffic up that way. We already have a lot with Sanofi. There's going to be even more because Paradise wants to make that section industrial. And we're going to be, extending our Act 537 up there so they can have sewer. So there's going to be big stuff going there. Which way are they going to be going to get to 80? Are they going to be coming back down 611 through Pocono Township down the hill? Are they going to be going up that way, causing traffic along 611? Or are they going to be going up to Mount Pocono to get on Route 80? I'm not sure. And I'm just worried that if we go C2 there, it's gonna really exacerbate the traffic problem. It might be something worth looking at, once I know we're working on that 611 corridor study, once we have a better idea of what the road's gonna look like in a few years, but doing it now, I think we're gonna be maybe putting the cart before the horse. I think maybe it's better to leave it C1 for right now.
Let me ask, do we know how large most of the properties, because it looks to me like the school owns a whole lot of that. So if there's smaller properties, there's not going to be great big warehouses going in there for massive truck traffic. It's so.
They could always combine those lots.
Right, of course.
Obviously, they'd have to
Buy
them all up and then combine them, go through land development. There's the whole kind of process there, but
The warehouses try to be in and off
Yeah.
the big interstates anyway.
Okay.
That's kind of so off the beaten path for a warehouse.
Well, I'm just,
I mean,
I'm
not
just
saying it
saying
couldn't
that,
happen, it's just.
right,
They prefer the
that,
more
but I'm
rural
just
location
saying,
where they're within 2 miles of a highway.
but I'm just saying how much truck traffic, if they're all, 2-acre lots, because, I don't know how big these lots are up there. But if the school owns the majority of that back there and you've only got 5 acres here, there and whatever, you're not going to get, that's what I'm saying, you're not going to get the big warehouses. So you're not going to have a lot of as much truck traffic as you would with Core 5 or, the Old Dominion or whatever. That's all I'm saying. So C2 could work.
Mount Pocono did install the 1,000,000 square foot warehouse, and we don't see much of the truck traffic from up there coming down 611 down that hill. So
I think up there, I think in that location anyway, you're gonna go north.
yeah, you go
Because north, you
940
go-
and 80.
Right.
Yeah,
80.
you're not gonna come all the way down because, you have to come all the way to the 715 juncture
Yeah,
to get on.
you would most likely go north from anything there.
Yeah.
In Paradise, there,
And if they're going industrial.
yeah, Paradise has a huge restriction on all the business district up through above us. So
Did you have an opinion, Dan?
Honestly, they're going up 314.
I know you
The,
did.
the trucks.
Yeah, I'm new to this.
Coming from the school.
So I appreciate everybody's work to this point. I think Kyle and Matt both have great points. Kind of what I've heard from the residents are, we do want to be forward thinking, which they're both forward thinking. And I also think if I'm working for the residents, from what I've heard, I think if you ask most of them, do you want more development or less? I typically think I've heard I'd rather have less development at this point. So I think that, it's a commercial zone. I don't see a huge advantage for the people who live in the Poconos to make it C2. But I'm open to listening to both sides, but I appreciate both these guys' thoughts and everybody else for all the work they've done. That's my thoughts.
That are just being finished right now. And I'm just more. Right, so if you order in all those are being located in Boston and.
Center.
Yeah.
And then up to hotels with plans and 352 town.
One of my concerns is, and we saw it last winter, the chateau probably could have burned to the ground because we couldn't get fire apparatus or anything up these roads because people come here and they don't know how to drive in the snow and our roads are gridlocked. And I don't think, that light by D'Amico's is the stupidest light I've ever seen.
Mhm.
Everybody gets stuck on that hill.
Goes both ways.
And once 611's, a parking lot, and we have a major fire at one of these apartment buildings that don't have firewalls up through the attic, it's gonna be bad. And I've been trying to speak up about that before they were even built, but, hopefully it never happens, but in a perfect storm, we could have a major fire. And, the less traffic we have on these roads in the wintertime, the better. That's just my 2 cents.
So- I'm thinking we're gonna have to have a show of hands, because I was leaving C2, and then now it looks like maybe you were kind of tied, so can we just, if you're in favor of the C2, just raise your hand and we'll count. Right? I mean, we're not voting here, we're just trying to give Nancy direction. So,
Well, I mean,
Matt I know Matt, you wanted C2. I don't know where Jeremy stands.
I'm leaving that up.
Okay.
yeah, I was just gonna say, no offense to the planning commission, but I think Ellen, you should weigh in at this point because it seems like the board of commissioners is split 2-2.
I'm more for C1 or send the letter and ask the resident. That's where I'm at. So I would like the planning commission, because they're gonna recommend to us. Usually, isn't that the way it works? They recommend to us, so I'd like to know what their recommendation is.
Would be, if it stays C1 now, doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be changed. If the concerns are traffic, regardless of whether it's C1 or C2, they're still kind of exposed to the same level of issues. So if there's some miracle traffic gets addressed somehow, that doesn't mean that we can't then come back and make that change. It's not like we're locking this in forever and can't make a change in the future, but I think we all see the traffic. I mean, there was traffic here on a Monday night going the other way. So I think that's a very valid point, that if for some reason, if that does get addressed at some point in the near future, then maybe we can reevaluate the whole corridor at that point. But again, that's just my sense.
Right, where would you sit on a recommendation?
I mean, again, everybody has their good points. The only thing that one of the things that I don't like about it is that its location. I understand that it's near the industrial, but everything, right. But everything else, that C2 is all down, down 611 the other way. So changing that, I think, you could potentially run into other people along there with C1 all along there saying, oh, I want this to be C2 for whatever reason, because that's happened before with other designations. I'm next to commercial. I want commercial from R1, whatever. So I would lean towards leaving it as C1 right now. And again, in the future, if things change with traffic and PennDOT decides to do something to 611 or even widen Route 80 eventually, then that can always be changed in the future. That's kind of where I stand. But I also think that based on the size of probably some of those lots, it looks like the school owns a lot of it. So if the school does own most of what's in there, it's hard to tell from the picture. Then somebody would have to go in and buy a bunch of lots to do something on a large piece, make it a large parcel. Short of that happening, you're not going to get big trucks necessarily going up there by the dozen. So, I'm kind of torn either way at this point, but that's kind of where I stand on it.
You can also look at the more commercial you can get right along 611, the more jobs you're going to create too. Our kids already don't want to stay in the area because there's no jobs for the most part.
So you're
So
more in
the more
favor of C2.
commercial, the more jobs.
Do you think it's C2?
Other parts
We just don't know which valley you're in.
program.
I think you were C1. Keep it where it is. Christine. Dennis. You can take a side or you're. Not so, but.
No, but I probably didn't see one.
C1.
C2. Industrial C2, right? C. Everybody, so. Yeah, so it looks like the majority of the planning commission is saying C1. And the majority right now is C1, so. Until the board makes its vote, I would say Nancy, just say C1, but we could change it, right, on our final draft?
Yep.
As we think about it.
Mhm.
Thank you for all your input.
Okay. Back here. It's C1 for now.
For now, until the board votes, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think that does it for the maps. Alrighty, so. Time wave 6:22. Okay, moving on, full draft number 3. So we won't go through this entire document. So I just want to highlight some of the changes which are highlighted in yellow, and I do have a couple of questions as we go through this. So this draft is dated July 20th, 2026. It was issued last week. The previous draft was from May of 2025, I believe. So the changes that you see in here that are highlighted yellow are a compilation of changes that were made over the course of that time. Mainly, they reflect discussions that we had at the last couple of meetings where we talked about the impervious coverage and the building coverage in the C1 in this commercial districts. This also includes revisions that were made with when Judy Acosta was on board here. Judy and her office had a number of edits that are incorporated here that are highlighted yellow. And then also this draft includes the data center overlay, which will now reverse that and take that out. The historic resource overlay district, and the latest, there was a ordinance dealing with the chicken ordinance. So that there's a question as to whether or not that ordinance would go in here or if we stick with the language that's in this draft. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. So definitions. So in Article 2, definitions were added. So let me just scroll down. Definitions were added. These again come from the data center ordinance. Artist rendering comes from the data center ordinance. Buffer yard comes from the data center ordinance. So that those definitions might now need be taken out if they're no longer in use. Let me see. Clear site triangle. I believe this was added by Judy's office. Judy and Paul.
Nancy,
Yes.
could we make a slight change to that?
Clear site triangle. Sure.
Yeah. I think it would read better if it says an area of unobstructed vision at the intersection of 2 or more roads.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. conservation district. We added, along with correctional facility, we added holding facility or detention center. And let me zoom in so this is larger on the screen for everyone. And so this is to capture the newer uses that are coming into some communities, the detention centers that we're hearing about. So this is now covered in the township's ordinance. Data center and data center accessory use, I'll double check those definitions to see, I would imagine the data center, the new data center ordinance requires those definitions. Earth disturbance activity, electrical substation came from the data center ordinance.
Again, I have a question on the earth disturbance.
Okay.
Nancy, I'm not sure. I didn't get the opportunity to read the rest of the zoning draft to see where that might be used, but if you're throwing in maintenance activities in there, does that mean every time the township goes out to pave a road, they need to get a permit or something? I mean, that would be a concern.
This one came from Judy. And I believe the idea was to make it consistent with the county's county conservation districts.
Who doesn't follow their own guidelines?
Now originally earth disturbance, where is it? Was defined. We had a different definition for it. Yeah. Where was that?
I think that was the issue.
Oh, disturbance. Here it was. So we originally had defined disturbance as any activity which exposes soils, alters topography, vegetation, or watercourse, except for removal, disease trees.
Which I think is more appropriate.
You like that one better? I'm sorry.
Because
Paul.
Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say the reason we put it in there was to kind of connect the grading ordinance to the zoning ordinance. So when there is earth disturbance, we can go after individuals under the zoning ordinance versus the grading for the earth disturbance. But
Maybe I'm worried about nothing, but I just, when I saw road maintenance, it just, like when you go with the dirt and gravel program and you pave a road, I mean, you have to get a special permit from the township to do that. I mean, that's
the county ordinance says that kind of road maintenance isn't included in that. Again, we should probably include it in our definition so it's clear. Existing road maintenance doesn't, or whatever it may be.
But if you're maintaining something, you're not putting something in new.
right. I mean, earth disturbance is what the older definition really was. I mean, you're disturbing the earth, you're digging it up, you're moving it around. That's earth disturbance. Going in and paving a road, you're not really disturbing anything, you're maintaining it. As a matter of fact, even under your grant guidelines, your labor and industry guidelines, maintenance is clearly defined as not disturbance, it is maintenance.
So as a part of maintenance, you can't disturb though, right? As part of maintenance, can you dig in the dirt or you just have to pay?
The only digging you can do, you can clean, under maintenance, you can clean your roadside swales and your ditches. But you can't, you can't put in a new lane or something like that. That would definitely be earth disturbance.
But the way you interpret that definition as it's written now is maintaining the road that's already there. Be defined as earth.
Yeah, and I can tell you from experience, that's how the county conservation districts interpret it. If they don't like you, they will give you a hard time for maintaining your road. they like you, they ignore it. I don't think that's right. I think it should be clear, it should be objective, and no one should have a question.
Would it suffice to just strike road maintenance activities out of this definition?
That would be my recommendation.
Does that work, Paul? All right. Okay. All right, so let me continue down now on, does anybody have any other issues, questions, comments on any of these definitions? While I get down to one that I have a question on, which is the transient dwelling units. See if there's anything else. The receptor comes from the data center. Okay. I don't know if this would be so I'll put this question out there. Might be legal or not. So transient dwelling. Okay, so there is in the historic overlay district, which was recently adopted, uses the term, it refers to transient dwelling unit, and it defines it as you see here outlined or highlighted yellow. Any dwelling unit owned or managed by a landowner which is rented or leased for a period of less than 30 days. During the process of creating this zoning update, and I know Lisa and Leo we had all this, and the Planning Commission had discussed the issue of transient dwelling units and came up with this definition, which I think might also be in chapter 302 of the code. Transient dwelling use of single family dwellings. And it's defined, as you see here, unhighlighted. Any dwelling unit used or managed by a person which is rented or leased for a period of less than 30 days. Transient dwelling use of single family dwellings shall be licensed in accordance with chapter 302 of the Pocono Township Code. So the terms are different. So it's transient dwelling use of single family dwellings versus in the historic overlay district transient dwelling unit. I think that we should probably use this unhighlighted. I think this is consistent with what is in chapter 302 right now. Have to check that.
We don't allow them to start.
Because it says any dwelling unit managed. But that almost seems like a hotel then. Whereas the first definition identifies it just in single family dwellings.
Right.
The difference would be the dwelling unit is defined in our ordinance. So if you go back to the definition for dwelling, that includes single family dwelling, 2-family, 3-family, multi-unit. It doesn't include hotel.
Okay.
That would be a separate use under our ordinance.
So then if there's multiple dwellings, then would that TDU definition not apply to a multifamily dwelling?
Currently, how we're doing it is even if it's a 2-family, 3-family duplex row home, they can get a transient dwelling unit license, and it's defined as a transient dwelling.
But then it seems as though then if our definition holds it just for single family dwelling, then it would exclude anything that's not a single family dwelling.
It may cause issues.
Okay.
Chapter 3 too.
The definition under the historic overlay is probably more appropriate,
It seems that way.
especially like Northridge, ski or excuse me, ski side, the or units
Because that-
connected.
Section 302 is just transient dwelling use of a single family dwelling. The definition then in the historic overlay would apply to any form of a dwelling, not just single family.
My understanding is the historical, you can't have a transient dwelling unit.
No, and that's where that definition that's highlighted in yellow that we're talking about came from.
Oh.
Chapter 302 should probably be tweaked to allow the 2-family, 3-family. And I believe it's just the title that says single family dwelling.
So maybe just remove.
Let's see the
That would be
definition
my
here too.
recommendation. I would just keep it transient dwelling units, TDUs. And then use the TDU definition, but keep that transient dwelling uses shall be licensed in accordance with chapter 302 of the Pocono Township Code, but I would just strike of single family dwellings. So take the definitions from the.
Yeah, but then when you look at 302, so now I'm looking at 302, this is it's the definition. That definition says transient dwelling use of single family dwelling. So chapter 302 is limiting it to single family dwellings.
Then would a loophole be?
We might have to amend that one as well.
302.
302. To make it consistent all the way around across the board, exactly. If we're allowing TDUs in more than just single family dwellings, then we
Yes,
should.
that's the question, yeah.
I would prefer to keep it just for single family. We've already got these short-term rentals gobbling up enough of our housing. I don't want to open up even more housing to potentially being changed over from, housing for people to housing for, well, not housing, or hotel space. Under the ordinance as it's currently written, no, but if we change it, if we get rid of the single family portion, then then it could be in multifamily as well. Right now it's limited just to single family, so we're kind of, again, we're putting a cap on that.
It's not just the definition as defining a transient dwelling unit, it's also then saying it's not allowed anywhere other than a single family home.
Historically, before I took over, they were being issued to anything that was a single unit. So I believe some of the definitions have been tweaked and it just didn't kind of close the loop on it in chapter 302. So there's quite a few dwelling units that are under this definition for single family that would now be revoked if we tried changing it to just single family.
But our ordinance right now says single family.
But you can have a single family in a multi-unit. And you can have a single family in this side, a single family in this side. So, and they can own.
The definitions were
like people. So
presumably kind of odd, so they gave the benefit of the doubt, because when the zoning ordinance is unclear, you give the benefit to the applicant. And I believe that's how it all started. Again, these were licenses that were started before I even started working for SFM or zoning, so we're kind of consistent with what it's been.
I mean, so, good. How do you control the 30-day limit if you have, I can move from one side to the other? And I can stay there 60 days or 59.
So if you rent it for less than 30 days, you need a TDU license.
Right.
So if they have, let's say, a duplex and one side has a TDU license, they can rent that side out for 30 days. But if the other side doesn't, they wouldn't be able to stay there. So let's say you rented the left side for less than 30 days, then moved into the right side.
and stayed there for less than 30 days, the right side would be in violation, but the left side wouldn't.
And if they both had licenses,
You could go back and forth. They both have a license, so you can stay there for less than 30, no matter.
you could stay there forever then, because.
You could, yeah.
You'd be back and forth.
Our ordinance only, the TDU license is specifically to rent it for less than 30 days. If someone wants to rent an STR or short-term rental for more than 30 days, they can.
And anything.
Because it's just not regulated at that point.
What's stopping someone from writing a lease agreement that's easily breakable to just kind of subvert the, yeah, that's what, I mean, we can try and do all kinds of things, but yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that STRs are already confined to two districts and they're not in the R1 and R2 district. And I think if you define it as single family usage only, you're infringing on people's property rights. And I don't manage short-term rental, so I really don't care. There's no conflict on my side. I'm just saying you're infringing on people's right to use their property.
I think anything that's going to open up more short-term rentals in this township is going to be very, very unpopular with people.
It's not, because they're already giving it to multifamilies and STRs.
All
And
right,
allowed in
well,
the commercial district.
Well, we'll
And
see.
it's
We'll see.
Okay, in that case, so we would use this definition that's highlighted yellow, that's just transient dwelling unit. That does not refer to single family dwellings, but then that means that chapter 302 would have to be amended to take out single family dwelling.
You're not following it anyway, right? No. Paul, so if a duplex comes in a commercial district right now, and they want to apply for a TDU permit for each side, would you push it through or would you deny it because it's a two-family?
They would need 2 licenses, one for each.
But you would allow it because it's
single family.
correct. As long as it's not a shared facility, it would be considered a single. So there's the loophole anyway.
That's the, I believe, where the kind of discrepancy in the ordinance and how it came down to allow.
Well, dwelling is defined in here. Single family dwelling is defined as a detached building designed for a single family. A multifamily dwelling or two-family dwelling is defined for 2. So this would limit it exclusive. If we would be issuing it, that would be in violation of our ordinance, or at least the ordinance that we're drafting here. We'd have to change all of those definitions of dwellings. But I don't think, are we changing the definition of a dwelling? It doesn't look like it's changed in here. It looks like it's the current definition, which is the single outbuilding designed for a single family.
There's 2 or 3 definitions that kind of dwelling unit, then attached versus semi-attached, that it doesn't say, because our ordinance says there's buildings and then attached buildings, but they don't separate them into different units. The way it's kind of defined is odd. And that's the issues. There was challenges and people discrepancies. So under the NPC, we fell back to giving discrepancy to the applicant.
So let me just say that.
And no, excuse me, go ahead, Ellen.
If you have a duplex and you live on one side, but you rent the other side,
As long as they.
it says this doesn't apply.
Act as separate units, each unit could be licensed different.
I think maybe
But no,
if you look at chapter 302, which is up on the screen here, has its own definition for dwelling unit. A single unit providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, sanitation. So even if it's a duplex, or a twin, a 2-family building.
So that's the other issue with the current ordinance. TDU is not a use in the use schedule. It's a hotel, motel, or transient lodging.
Right.
So when we do a change of use from a single family to a short-term rental, it's under that use of transient lodging. So then they meet that requirement, but then 302 says single family or transient dwelling unit of a single family dwelling. Dwelling unit here is defined in this chapter. The 2 chapters have different definitions. So that's the the
Yeah.
odd kind of trying to figure out which one to follow and then challenges I come up with.
But
And I
looking at-
recall doing this definition. I know that Leo had a lot to say about it. And I think he was pretty adamant about using this terminology and tying it to chapter 302.
But 302-2B reads, this chapter shall not apply to blah, blah, blah. And then when the property owner or representative is present on site at the property on a 24-hour per day basis. So it's not considered a short-term rental if I own one side and I rent out my other side?
You would have to go for a change of use for a bed and breakfast. That's what that section is specifically calling for.
But that's not a bed and breakfast if I make my own breakfast on my own side in my own kitchen.
So in our, under the zoning ordinance, there's a definition for bed and breakfast, and there were existing bed and breakfasts, so they didn't want to exclude those and require that they get a TDU license. So there is a use in our use schedule for bed and breakfast uses. So that's where that section in 302 is
Yeah,
referring
but
to.
that's separate. Bed and breakfast is listed here, but so is when the property owner lives on one side. So they're two different things as far as I can tell on this. See what I mean? So we might need to look at that too. All of 302, I guess.
Yeah, so it's essentially saying that the commas are a little weird there.
I think it's basically saying that a hotel, motel, inn, bed and breakfast, boarding house, or group home are not considered transient dwelling units.
But they should be.
Each one of those has its own separate definition and use in the zoning ordinance and comes with its own specific requirements under the zoning ordinance.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah.
That's kind of the one definition will say one thing and then you move to another and then it changes back and forth. So
But if
it's,
that's ambiguous, it goes to the person challenging us. So we should not make it ambiguous.
yes.
Well, same thing with a dwelling unit. Because when you're building, you're calculating dwelling unit per square footage of the lot. So is a dwelling unit an apartment or a single family house? So therein goes the TDU explanation too on how it's defined. Single family house versus dwelling unit.
And so the question is, I guess we're back to, does the township want to limit TDUs to single family dwellings or not? Single
Yes.
family,
But a single family dwelling would be considered apartments too, because you don't have common facilities. You have your own kitchens, bathrooms, there's no shared. So dwelling unit too, I mean, that would be your loophole in the TDU.
let me look
That,
at
that's what I would fight if I did short-term rentals, but I don't.
And apartments, right? You can have
dwelling unit.
Well, apartment buildings, you're calculating it. Dwelling unit per square footage, a lot of times, like that's how we're doing Stroud Township right now, it's dwelling unit per square, per square footage of the lot.
If
They're allowed
anything,
X
if
amount.
if-
So it's like with attached walls, they're a dwelling unit.
if the intent of the TDU ordinance or chapter 302, if the intent is to limit TDUs to single family dwellings, then what it should say is single family detached. Single family detached is defined as a single family detached dwelling. You could not have it in a two family or a multifamily building.
Yes.
Right? You wouldn't be allowed to have a TDU in a two family dwelling or a multifamily dwelling. You could only have it in single family detached. So if that is the intent, then the definition here in the zoning ordinance and in chapter 302, the title of the term and the definition should be single family transient use of a transient, whatever it is, transient use of a dwelling in a single family detached dwelling unit.
I don't think that was the original intent. I think our original intent was get it out of residential. I think that was, because we had it in residential because we thought we had to, then the law changed and then we were stuck.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some other nuance to chapter 302.
I don't think that we have any split. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like down in like East and stuff. You can have a duplex and someone owns the left side, another person owns. I don't know of any in this area. I haven't come across any personally.
Most of the, well.
Oh, I actually am. I do.
So-
I have townhouses.
In Northridge, there's row homes, so sets of 4. Each one of those is a single
Yes.
unit, but they're attached. So under the definition, technically those would be a single family dwelling, but it's a attached building. So there's if you look at the building altogether, it's a multi-dwelling unit, but each individual unit is a single family unit.
I think detached, protect, bigger the home. They own 2 halves. The attached, well.
Yeah, like Jim, I think a good point is like the Seaside Village, where it's like 4 units, all individually, all families living in all 4 units. If one of those units becomes a short-term rental, the other 3 families are probably not going to want to live there anymore. Stereos blasting 10 o'clock at night. Most of those units up there are already TDUs. Is the issue? Oh well, I mean,
No, I'm just saying that. I think you can't protect yourself.
Yeah, they are.
You live in the attached dwelling from your neighbor starting to use theirs as an STU. And there's no protection there. Detached is the word you need. So that if you do have it detached, and it falls in the correct zone, then you can do an STR with the license. But if you have buildings that are attached to one another with multiple owners, it's still single family dwelling. Without the word detached, you're exposing that other person to an SDR, literally attached to their building, and that's not fair. That's not even right. That would be agreed. That would be, reason to sell my property if they're partying 24/7, which I don't be.
I don't think so.
You get where I'm coming, the word detached.
I think you're right, Jim. No, I'm totally on your side here. I want to see the single family for the single. Yeah, well, yeah, single family detached. Yeah, whatever, however we have it defined in here, exactly the precise language. I'm all with you.
So I think it's
The issue with the issue with the ordinance right now is that a single family in specifically chapter 302, because they are separate chapters, so you can't in section 302 point to the zoning ordinance unless it specifically calls out to it. So in this 302 section, it doesn't define a single family dwelling or multi-attached building or anything like that. So under chapter 302, we can only use those definitions unless it specifically calls out something in a zoning ordinance, like the commercial, industrial, or recreational district. So that's the issue is, even though it may be defined under a zoning ordinance, we can't just pull from those. So if, again, there's currently quite a few. In total, we have, I think, 68 currently. Probably close to 30% of those are up in Northridge or Seaside Village. So there's going to be quite a few. There's a 3-unit off of Learn. There's quite a few that would probably challenge us if we changed it. And yes, they would, because it's a yearly license, and then we
use their properties. If they're buying it in that district specifically to do short-term rentals and they're compliant.
So the short-term rental license only does the license. The change of use is
under zoning. So if they get a change of use permit, then there would be an existing nonconformity if we change it under zoning. TDU, if you change it, then the license requirement changes every year.
So I am inclined to say that we keep the definition in the zoning as it was originally drafted, which matches chapter 302. Keep it like that, at least for now, until, until, and then down the road, if the township wants to amend chapter 302, then you can do that. But I think for now, the zoning definition should be consistent with what is in chapter 302. And I think that's why Leo probably was, and I think.
So that's not gonna preclude the two-family house being a TDU.
Dwelling unit.
It would still operate, the process would still operate as it's operating now. So I think a two-family unit, each unit could be considered a single family unit. So if you have a twin or a duplex, each unit could be under chapter 302 considered a single family unit.
Paul has no complaints from any of our TDUs that are in multifamily buildings. There's been no issues.
Yeah, so currently the zoning ordinance doesn't define a transient dwelling unit. That's why everything is regulated under chapter 302 for transient dwelling unit. And then because a single family dwelling is not defined in chapter 302, that's why it's a single dwelling unit is what they call it.
Okay, so moving on. This, I think I will ask Leo and Lisa. I could send an email with all of the overlay maps that we have, is how to handle, before I go there, does anyone have any other issues, questions with the definitions? Yes, John.
We had talked about this probably right when you first started, and under the slope definition, do we want to exempt man-made slopes?
I thought that we did that. I think we did that in in the article that talks about slopes.
Okay, if it's.
But we could probably slope. I mean, we could put something in here too in the definition. Let's see.
When you do that, John, is there any age limit on how long that was man-made? Like if it was there for 100 years, is it still considered man-made?
Yeah.
Grandfather built that hill.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair question, Ellen. I don't know. I just know that you're not under the current ordinance, and maybe it only goes. I don't know. I just know that under the current ordinance, you can't create steep slopes. You're not supposed to create anything steeper than 3 to 1, which isn't very steep. So why would we want to protect those that were made artificially greater than that? That just, and it always does come up
470
on a piece of property if there's man-made slopes there and people think you should get rid of those, but then the ordinance protects them. And so that's where I'm coming from.
So we have the exclusion. I'm on page 322 of the ordinance. So under limits of disturbance for steep slopes, it says excluding man-made slopes. So steep slope areas excluding man-made slopes shall be preserved in their original state. In no case shall disturbance exceed the permitted limits. So it's in there.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I don't know if Ellen has a
I'm just
concern.
wondering, if it is 100 years old, how do you know it was man-made? Like,
Well,
what
the burden is on the develop. Usually this comes up when there's a developer submitting a grading plan or a land development plan. The burden on them is to establish that it's been a man-made slope. Now, some are obvious to everybody. I mean, if sometimes, and I've seen this, you'll have what looks like a more or less level field, but you'll see a bunch of piles throughout it. And in theory, you can't disturb those because they're steep. But those piles were dumped there by somebody a long time ago, and it makes all the sense in the world to get rid of them. And just about everybody would agree that you should, but you have to go get the zoning variance. Well, this isn't our zoning ordinance, so yes, you would need a variance to get rid of those piles. So,
Thank you.
Keep your dirt bike over.
yeah.
Okay, so regarding the overlay, the zoning map itself and the overlay maps, again, this could be a question for Lisa and Leo, is how to handle them in the ordinance. Do we attach them all as appendices to the ordinance, or?
Yes, I would
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend it that they stay together so that as an applicant is looking at the ordinance, they can reference them right then and there.
Right
I think
there.
it'll be cleaner and easier for everyone involved.
Okay.
To have it available at the township.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we'll attach the zoning map itself and all of the overlays as appendices. All right. Alrighty, now let's see. Okay, so let me get down to, and also, by the way, and these, where are they? Headings, the headings. If you are looking at the document in PDF format, I don't know what version of Adobe you all have, but you can hit the bookmarks tab icon on the left side of the page, and then it'll bring up all of the different sections so you can easily navigate. So I am going to jump down to the districts. Let's see. R1, okay, basic district regulations. Okay. So for the, let's see, RD district. Okay, so here I put in the, we had discussed at the last meeting, the changes to the building coverage, impervious coverage, building heights. So that those adjustments have been made according to our last meeting. So that was done for the RD, C1, C2, and C3 districts. So all of the impervious coverages and building coverages have been updated and revised to reflect the latest comments from the last meeting. In terms of the commercial districts, so at this point, in terms of the names, we're just calling these the C1 Commercial 1 District, C2 Commercial 2 District, C3 Commercial 3 District. Do you want to give these more descriptive names? Or keep it simple? Like, you know, neighborhood commercial, highway commercial.
I've been keeping it simple,
Okay.
but that's just my personal.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody's already used to these terms. Okay. Okay, principal wind energy facility. let's see. Principal Wind Energy Facility District. Okay, so this one. Okay, this is something that we wrote with the Planning Commission. The Principal Wind Energy Facility District has noise standards in it. Okay. So I am on page 83. So this question is equipment selected for, so noise. So we originally wrote in that audible sound shall not exceed 45 decibels, and then revised it to show that noise emanating from a PWEF shall not exceed the levels specified in 470-35.1. So in that section, 470-35.1 performance standards, there are noise limits that would apply to, I think, any use in the township. So we're making the wind energy facilities consistent with that. Now, okay, so now this question might be null and void because of the data center or overlay has been removed. So, okay, so never mind. I think we're good here.
I do have a question for you, Nancy.
Yes.
Looking at your PDF on page 81 on the red block where I think you have some notes, you say after noise, a minimum 1,000 feet to mitigate noise.
Noise minimum 1,000 feet, right? So that's
That-
setback.
That doesn't sound like that's very objective, but yet you have all this other objective criteria on the next couple of pages.
So setbacks. So here, setbacks are for noise, noise minimum 1,000 feet. Okay, so this note on the right in red was kind of an explanation when we originally did this with the planning commission, was an explanation for the setbacks, why the setbacks are what they are. So the setback is saying 1,000 feet from the nearest property line. And that 1,000 feet is used because you need 1,000 feet minimum to mitigate noise.
But how do we know that if we've got all that other, that you've got the criteria on page 83 about noise?
So let's see, noise. Page 83, equipment. Shall be able to exceed minimum standards.
I mean,
so you're saying if you mitigate the noise by doing these things, then why do you need 1,000 feet?
That's my question.
Yeah.
Some of that distance was for ice throw.
Yeah, so it's also for the ice throw.
Yeah, and I see that, but
Yeah.
that's also has an objective formula, and based on your formula, you have an example where even 1,000 feet won't work. They'd have to set it back 1,128 feet. So it seems like there's objective criteria in the ordinance that anybody who wants to do this use has to follow, and that's going to probably dictate it. I don't know. I was just raising the question. Seemed to me that you had.
Now, so let me just explain that red box is coming out. That's not going to stay.
Right, I understand that.
Right, that was just no.
And I may not have caught it if you didn't have that red box in there.
Yeah. Criteria. So I think what we did was, okay, our rotor diameter was 430 feet. So we came up with the 1,128 feet. And I think that we, together with the planning commission, settled on 1,000 feet as
Okay,
a reasonable setback.
okay. And
So,
that's fine. I was just curious as to why you had that, then you had the specific criteria, but okay.
all right. Okay. Okay. So the data center ordinance, I will remove this overlay now, and I will make sure that this incorporates the new ordinance that was written where it's only permitted in the industrial district, and whatever else needs to come in or out of here, I'll make sure that's done. The historic resource ordinance, that has been added. Historic overlay district. So you saw the map, and then here's a text basically copied and pasted. I did change this. And here's where the TDU is mentioned. Any TDU use lawfully existing and operating within the historic overlay district prior to, I changed it to February 1, 2026 which is when the HOD district was enacted, shall be considered legal nonconforming use and shall be governed by Article 5's regulations on nonconformities. And then TDUs shall not be expanded, enlarged. So that's where the TDU is coming in. But I did change that date. Okay. Now, conservation subdivision design. We talked about making this optional now instead of mandatory. And so that has been done. So where am I now? Jumping up. So conservation subdivision design, and I will make sure these section numbers are, I don't usually do the section numbers until the very end. Otherwise you spend a lot of time changing section numbers back and forth. And it's a waste of time and money. So I will get those section numbers in. So conservation subdivision design is now optional and exempted from the recreational fee in lieu. Where is that? So we talked about this at the last meeting. And so here it is on page 216, where conservation subdivision design shall be exempt from the common open space and recreation areas and in lieu fees required by the subdivision and land development ordinance.
That's good.
Okay. Oops. Now jumping to the detention centers. I think, okay. So we have a section on correctional facilities. We added holding facilities or detention centers. This is on page 227. So we just had to add a couple of terms to this section and to the definition so that the ordinance now addresses detention centers. Okay, question coming up for all of you. Hold on, let's see. Should I keep doing that? Okay, so on page 229, together with the planning commission, we wrote regulations for keeping of poultry or fowl for home use. Now, the township has a new ordinance, which I have here, the fowl ordinance. Ordinance 2026-05, which is not quite as extensive as what is in the draft of the full zoning ordinance. So the question is, do you want to use what you had just adopted in May of 2026?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Talking about chickens and roosters.
Okay, so we'll use in 2026 ordinance. Okay, so I'll add that in. I'll scratch all of this. No pun intended. And insert that new ordinance. Okay. Let's see. PRDs are now back on the table. So this ordinance update had originally proposed to no longer permit PRDs, but this is now back to the way it is existing. So PRDs are back. Okay. Table of uses. There's a couple of questions on the table of uses. Where is that? Page 37. PRDs is on page 242 also. Okay, on the table of uses. So ordinance 2026-05, recreational use, public / nonprofit / non-commercial. So in an ordinance, that wouldn't be the foul ordinance. Maybe that was done along with this.
As part of that.
As part of this ordinance. Yeah. Okay. So in this ordinance, the recreational use, sorry, where am I here? Recreational use, public, nonprofit, non-commercial. In ordinance 2026-05 is requiring it as a conditional use. In this draft ordinance, again, done with the planning commission, that was listed as permitted by right, as is commercial recreational use. So the question is, do you want to stick with the conditional use that you just passed in May, or do you want to permit these by right?
I would
Permitted by
stick
right.
with it.
I thought it was part of the ordinance.
Yeah, no, we made it conditional use. We just did that. Change it.
Conditional use?
It was permitted by right with permit.
Are we sure it's conditional use?
Let's see. Recreational use, public customary. I could be wrong. Let's see.
Yeah, keeping a foul.
Yeah, conditional use.
Oh, that's commercial. So for a single family permitted by use in all districts.
So we're looking at recreation,
Okay.
public, non-profit, non-commercial.
That's a commercial
Yeah.
use versus it's permitted by right in all the other
Yeah.
at your house.
Yeah.
So it's conditional use in this 2026-05 ordinance, but in our draft, we had it as permitted. And we also have commercial recreational use as permitted.
I think commercial was a conditional use for the ordinance, but the keeping a fowl at your house is permitted by right on everything, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's fine. My question is with this recreational use. Do you want the recreational uses to be permitted by right or permitted by conditional use?
Conditional use.
Let's see you.
That's what we put in
Yeah.
there. I don't want to change it.
Okay, so in that case, we'll do the commercial as well. I mean, I don't see why you would have make a nonprofit go to conditional use, but not commercial.
Recreational had it permitted by right. And it had commercial as conditional use, didn't it? Can you go back
just
to the
put
ordinance,
that,
please?
Yeah, that little table you showed, right there. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
we want to keep it the same as that.
yeah.
Okay. So, okay.
I assume.
Why are we making nonprofits jump through hoops?
I mean, we just made that ordinance in May.
Why does the chicken ordinance have something about recreational use? Recreational use is like a land trust or something, right? Why is that in the chicken ordinance?
It was included, we did it as an amendment to the zoning and it included two different sections. So it wasn't just the chicken ordinance, it did include the recreation as a separate amendment to the zoning. It has nothing to do with the foul. It's just that we did it as all part of one amendment so that we could just do it as one advertisement as opposed to splitting them up into two ordinances.
Why did we do it? Does anybody remember why we did it?
Why conditional use?
Yeah, why do we make it conditional use rather than permitted by right? Why are we making nonprofits jump through hoops that we're not making commercial property owners jump through? That doesn't make sense to me.
No, commercial property owners are conditional use as well.
No, they're all permitted up there. That's what she was just showing us.
This is the
Recreational use commercial is all permitted.
this is
That's
the
the old page.
proposed.
It
This
hasn't
is the
been updated for
proposed.
the ordinance.
Correct. They're talking about the ordinance that was approved by you guys. It's all conditional. And this proposal was back before that ordinance took place. This was what was proposed. It wasn't what was adopted. So now she's got to make this match our ordinance that was passed.
Well, the one she was just showing us didn't say, it only said the nonprofit one. The commercial one wasn't there. Could you go back to it, Nancy? It's just the nonprofit there. It's not,
Recreational.
non-commercial. Yeah, so the regular is not in there. Recreational use commercial is not in there. That's still permitted.
Oops, sorry.
I think everything should be permitted by right with a permit, but that's me. I really don't want to do chickens again, please.
So if we have no conditions, it's permitted by right, right? So it's the same, you have the option of putting conditions on it, but you don't have to put conditions on it. Or do,
Different would be the cost of it here.
Mhm.
And then obviously you do put conditions on it based on property specific. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, sure, Kepler, but I believe on the proposed one, you want to make both the nonprofit and the commercial, so both of those rows would be conditional? Which
No, I mean, either both should be conditional or both should be permitted. I would say if we're going to make one conditional, it should be the commercial one because we don't know what a commercial recreational use is pretty vague. And it seems like that could be just about anything from like a dirt bike course to, I don't know, like a tent platform or something. I guess that would be a campsite, but you see what I mean. We don't really know what a recreational commercial use is, whereas a recreational nonprofit is going to be like, the land trust is going to be like walking trails and stuff like that. That's not going to be very intensive. So I don't really think we need to we would expect to have to put a whole bunch of conditions on it, especially if it's a non-commercial use. It's not going to be high traffic.
the rest of the board want to weigh in? Planning commission, your ideas?
both of those rows be.
Obviously you put in what you put in.
That was based on our discussions.
Uh-huh.
Could have been a year ago, maybe. So I mean, if there's been adjustments,
Could have been
changes.
5
then
years ago.
it's Ultimately, up to the board. But I agree, it should be consistent in whether it's permitted or conditional use between the two.
I mean, I personally think that we should follow the ordinance that we passed, and anything besides an accessory use at your single family home is conditional use based on that table. Permitted by right if it's your single family home, but conditional use for all the other. Or either way, I say chicken
Well,
everywhere.
yeah, it should reflect our ordinance, and then if the board wants to amend the ordinance, then we can talk about that.
We are amending the ordinance. That's what we're doing right now, isn't it?
No, you can't amend the ordinance.
We're amending the zoning ordinance. That's what we're doing. That's the whole point of this. That's why we're here, isn't it?
We're updating it.
Yeah.
But you're updating it to conform with the existing ordinances in place, and we just passed the chicken ordinance, so it has to
Well, we
be
passed it.
consistent across the board.
I think there's some confusion that the highlighted section up there doesn't really have anything to do with chickens. It's solely for like a separate use.
It sounds like this was just kind of shoehorned into the chicken ordinance and nobody seems to know why. So like, I don't know why we're defending this. If nobody can explain why this was added to the chicken ordinance, then why
No, we're
would we?
just saying that we should have this reflect the ordinance, and then we can amend that ordinance. I agree that should be looked at, but let's not.
Well, the chicken
Pass
ordinance is
this
separate.
separate-
Lisa said that this is a separate thing. She said
Yes,
these were
that's
both put into that when we passed it, but that was a separate amendment to our zoning ordinance versus the addition of the chicken ordinance. Or is that my understanding, Lisa? Yeah.
Added a definition for this separate use.
So they added the definition in that highlighted section currently under our zoning ordinance is conditional. I think where Kepler is concerned is that the road directly above that highlighted is not currently in our ordinance. And he thinks it should be either they should both be conditional or both be permitted.
But they're two different things. So.
The chicken ordinance has nothing to do with these two rows on this page.
Chickens.
No, so the chicken, that's where I think there's, it feels like there's like three conversations going on. So there's no chickens. Ordinance 08 or whatever it may have been, the highlighted section in yellow is currently conditional use.
Yeah.
I think the question, at this point, to add clarity, do we want to keep that as conditional use?
Yeah, until we.
I think the question is, do we want to make a group like the Pocono Heritage Land Trust or, the Broadhead Watershed Authority or whoever is buying a property to make like a walking trail, do we want to be able to put conditions in place for them that we wouldn't put in place for if somebody bought the same piece of property and wanted to put a dirt bike track in? Personally, I think that we would want to put conditional uses on the dirt bike track versus the again, nonprofit walking trails. But that's just me. I mean, if we want to go the other way,
No, I agree. I'm just saying that has to be addressed separately. That's a separate ordinance. That it's in that ordinance for whatever reason, and we can amend that. But
so
we can't just.
We're not amending anything. So right now,
I
the
understand.
confusion is that yellow section is currently conditional use. The draft that the planning commission came up with, they said permitted, but you guys adopted it as conditional. So do you want to change it back to permitted or conditional? We'll start with that question. For nonprofit recreational uses, do you want to keep it conditional or make it permitted by right?
I think I'm losing it where Charles is saying it's only for nonprofits. We never do anything by only nonprofits. So
That's where the second row right above the highlighted is the issue. Is there's the recreational use commercial.
Mhm.
So that's where they're separating them. If it's a nonprofit, right now it's conditional, but if you adopted this as it is, the commercial would be permitted. And then if you amended that second row that's highlighted to be conditional, a nonprofit would be conditional use, but the commercial would be permitted. So what Kepler's arguing is that they should both be either conditional or permitted.
what did we adopt?
So
Different
right
things?
now, recreational uses, public, nonprofit, non-commercial is conditional use. That's that yellow section right there.
Oh.
We have it conditional use currently. In the proposed draft, it's permitted by right. So do you want to keep it that way?
Conditional use
Lisa.
for both.
Do you have insight as to why that was changed and just called out the nonprofit one and not the commercial?
I believe what ordinance 2026-05 did is it created a definition for public, nonprofit, non-commercial, which was not there
Okay.
before.
Okay.
So that is now in our ordinance. And as part of ordinance 2026-05, we also identified where we would want them permitted in all districts and what kind of use, a conditional use. So this
Okay.
is the purpose of 2026-05.
So that created a definition.
Yes.
So that goes to Ellen's point, which is it's new.
It's new, correct.
Okay.
Now, just a point of clarification, as part of this amend or updating of our ordinance, we could change conditional use, what is listed in 2026-05 as conditional use straight across the board, either keep it that way, put it back to permitted, and we could also change recreation use commercial to conditional use or keep it permitted. The board can decide that as part of this update.
What if we make commercial conditional use then, and then they'll both be conditional use, whether you're doing a commercial or whether you're doing a
That's correct.
nonprofit?
Yes,
Yeah.
you could do that.
Why
That
don't
makes
we just
sense.
do that then? And that way it's,
Because you're able, you don't have to really put many, if any, conditions then,
Yeah,
correct?
No. I've
Okay.
heard over in Smithfield, they're having a heck of a time over there with like a big dirt bike track that
Okay. So then-
went in. And I think being able to put conditional uses on something like that might be something,
Yeah,
our residents
absolutely.
would appreciate.
Okay.
Hey, we got through that.
And I think that's it. Yes.
So where we left, we just have to send those letters out and get the people's feedback and maybe one more. And
There's an end in sight.
Yes, and I have to make a few changes based on the data center ordinance, and I'll put the new chicken ordinance in here. Sure.
It has nothing to do with the recreational use of by the way, of a nonprofit.
Gets you excited. Paul has something.
Just one thing that may be just a simple fix. Can you go to the sign section for the ordinance under sign plaza?
And Matt Long, please don't leave. You have to sign some papers in my office, please.
And go to the principal's office.
Please
report to the principal's office.
It would be permitted signs types by zone. And then if you scroll down to sign plaza, there should be a table in there. It's like right there. So G2 under this section, that table, it has sections for a structure size, and this is a section specifically to allow for the size of a sign plaza or sign plaza size. It has for 0 to 50,000, 50,000, and 1 to 99,000. If there's a building over 99,000, it doesn't have a regulation. So we should either change that to 99 and above and add a line, or just remove it to 50,000 and above. Because we recently got kind of challenged on that.
What is your thought? Would an 80 square foot sign be big enough for something over 99,000?
So there's only, from my limited research, probably the crossings and then the Wise Plaza.
Okay.
Those are the only
Oh, and the
two.
Wise Plaza just got a new sign. Is that where? Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, how many square feet is that?
It's the same as it was, but it was slightly changed. But the lawyer kind of brought it up to
Now,
our
is that
attention.
more? Is that 80 square feet?
Yes, but it was they got a variance from it previously, so they stayed an existing non-conforming size that just changed shape.
And they were non-conforming, they just did the
Yes,
same, they
but-
didn't get any more.
Yes, they didn't get any more, but they did bring it to our attention that there's some discrepancy. So
And
just wanted to kind of
how
bring that up.
many square feet is the non-conforming sign that they replaced?
I believe it's over 100. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So then in that scenario, I mean, if there's not that many properties, maybe we add another line? Unless if there's not that many properties, if they're already non-conforming, then maybe we just leave it the way it is. It's non-conforming. They already have the
The problem would be is if they did want to come in and get a much bigger sign, there's
Right.
not a regulation on how big that sign would
I
be.
mean, if we just change that last one to 50,001 and above.
Yes.
And not go with a bigger sign.
Yep, that would limit them to 80.
And what about that big outlet sign that you see from 80?
That's an off, or I believe
Is that not this?
that wouldn't be this. So Sign
Okay.
Plaza is a group of smaller signs brought
Okay.
into one.
Which would probably be maybe their 611 or Sullivan Trail
Yes, so
sign.
those would be regulated
Okay.
under that section. I would recommend just taking out the 90,000
Yeah.
and just putting
At 50,000, that
50,000
makes
or above.
sense. If it's only really that one sign.
Yeah, there's
And
probably
it's
two.
already non-conforming, then
Because technically they
Yeah.
can come in and say, hey, there's no regulation.
yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
You want it 50,001 and above?
If the board and everybody else is in agreement to 50,001 square feet and above is limited to 80. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Got it. Okay, so let's see. All right, next step. So township sending letters. I will make more edits to this, to the document, I think, and then amend or revise the zoning map once we get clarity on where that should go. And then our next meeting is scheduled for August 24th, I believe. Now, do we want to hold that meeting or wait until we hear from residents?
So is there anything else between now and then that you want to talk about? Because I don't know if that'll give enough time to send the letters and compile all that information.
That's right. I mean, I think this should do it for
I mean,
the text of the update. The other outstanding issue that's on the table is the saldo and amendments to the saldo.
was that something
And
we
we'll have
wanted?
to get with John's office on that letter.
Because I want to make sure we get those in lieu of fees straightened out.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was my pet peeve.
Oh, we're working on that and,
The discrepancies, right, between
the
saldo and zoning.
yeah. And Amy's working on that too.
Okay.
Should we
Most
then
of the way
August
through it.
8th?
Right, well, yes.
So is that something we want to try to do at the August meeting or or
The August meeting date.
24th?
Yeah.
Probably schedule that. I think she can get it done by then.
Okay. Then we'll talk about saldo.
And so I'll have to get with Amy too, because I think I'm supposed to do some of those edits as well. So, okay,
Well, if you
She's
don't
only-
have it done for the meet, I mean, we can always,
right.
for some reason you don't have it ready.
Cancel.
Okay, so we'll tentatively schedule that meeting for the 24th. Okay.
At least then we're
Keeping moving
Keeping
with.
things moving. Great. Okay.
Same channel.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.